15th, not the 14th.
Oh, you guys do the 15th. You guys are Yerushalmi.
Yeah. So,
Yofi.
are you doing anything on the 14th like that we can stop by and say
You
hi?
could always stop by. We're together with other families, but you guys are, but it's right before, the Suda is at the end, Kiddo, of the day, right before you guys have to hear Megillah. So, but for sure. I'll talk to Rabbi Weinberg. Maybe you guys will come over like in the afternoon, or maybe even the night. I'll talk to Rabbi Nachman. It's an interesting question. Perek Gimel. I want you guys inside. We're going to do what we do in the beginning of every chapter. Perek Gimel is probably the most intense. Yeah, it's the most intense perek
like
in the Megillah.
Haman and he's like,
you get Haman, Mordechai.
Not bound, I'm gonna kill all the Jews. That's literally the announcement. Everyone's like, wait, what?
Right. So Perek Gimel is really, I would say, sort of the heart of the Megillah. We first meet Haman.
Is that why people say that if you read from
there,
Perek Gimel
that's that opinion. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Yeah, that's where you have to start.
And then Rabbi Yehuda is like, you don't have to. If you don't hear the first one, you're still Yotzei.
Right.
And he probably says that because Perek doesn't talk about the Jews much.
Right. That's what we were saying.
And that's probably his reasoning. And then Rabbi Yossi's opinion is probably because Perek Gimel is where it gets heated and it gets.
It's the story. It's the base of the story.
Yes, basically, pretty much the whole story.
Right. No, I mean, the heart of the story, where it starts.
Of the story.
So what I want you guys to do, as we've done in the past, I want you guys to take a look at Perek Gimel, read Perek Gimel on your own, and try to come up with some serious, good questions about Perek Gimel, okay? Everyone take the time to read in English, and we'll dive in. Erev Tov. Grab a Tanakh, read Perek Gimel. We're asking questions.
So why did he have to give him his silver ring, not something else?
Hold on. Keep your questions to yourself at the moment. We're going to hear them. I want the best one, Ezra, okay? We're going to hear them in a minute after everyone reads. And we're going to remind everyone this is a certain kind of reading. There's a reading to really gouge, like find out what bothers you or what you see and what you notice here that's more than the usual story. The words of the Torah always illuminate everyone, no matter how many times you read them. There's no such thing as reading psukim and not having ideas.
Where do I find Esther?
Towards the very end of the book, it's the last Megillah, right before Daniel, after Kohelet. Okay.
You said 3, yeah?
Yeah. So if you remember where we ended with 2, right? So 3 is...
So the 13th, that's when Moshe had passed away? No?
No. It's the month where he passed away.
It's the month he passed away in.
The 7th is the day.
He passed away on the 7th of Adar.
According to tradition, yeah.
I heard that the same day Moshe died was the same day that all the Jews were supposed to be killed.
This is the month. That's the drasha is the month. That he was happy that it's the month that he died in. Without knowing that it was also the month that he was born in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Gemara says. We're not going to relate to that much, I think. But you have your questions?
I have a question.
No, you can't only have one question from this chapter. You have to have 50 questions in this chapter. Go in, look again, and find some more. The question again can come from words to meanings to context to phrases.
Have you learned the Megillah before?
Not really, but I love it. It's just, even singing it gets me. I was actually doing the Eicha here, the psukim, but I like the tune of Eicha. So we're going to give it another 2 minutes. Make sense? Is that all right? Okay, Yosef, 2 more minutes.
Okay. So we only do the Eicha trope in the first 5 chapters.
Yeah, the first 4 chapters.
First 4.
Yeah. The last one is the 4th chapter.
Last one's the 4th chapter.
Yeah, in the very beginning of the 4th chapter we use.
Right.
Finished it.
Yeah, and you have your million questions.
I have about 4.
4 is good. It's not a million, but it's good. Now choose the best one of the 4.
Last time I chose wrong.
There's no choosing wrong. It's okay. Think about them really. What bothers you the most? What
If I really got to think of one.
No, 1 second. In a second, we'll have everyone focus, listen to each other, and then we'll go on.
Can you clear something up for me? Sorry, just on the English side, I can't tell if it says, if it be pleasing to the king to let a decree be written to destroy them, and 10,000 talents of silver. Does it say, will I, or will one weigh out into the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring the same into the king's treasuries?
Good. It's good you don't know what exactly it says there, because no one else knows exactly what it says there either.
No, as in
No.
the letter.
I'm saying
I can't tell if it's a one or if it's an I.
I probably I in that sense, but I'm not sure because that pasuk is very, very difficult
Do you
to
have
interpret.
Megillah opened up?
Yeah. Why?
Because I remember reading some of Megillah.
Well, that's where we're gonna start our
Because
page.
here it says that here it sounds like Ahasuerus didn't know who Haman was talking about.
Good.
But then in Megillah, it's like Ahasuerus said, it's like, well, these Jews, you shouldn't mess with them, because I tried doing it, it didn't work. And they say like, oh, he knew all along, he just didn't care.
Good, wonderful. That's right. You're noticing good things. In the parak, it doesn't say who they are, right? So it's a good thing. Okay, but let's do our seventh here. Okay, so you've all seen the parak. I want to remark this parak. We're going to be here forever. Okay, in this parak, at least for we have 4 different subjects in my mind that we're going to have to deal with in this chapter. Each one of them is dealing with a different major theme in the Megillah. Some in explaining the Megillah, and some in really the depth of the Megillah. We meet 2 big important ideas here, at least. But let's go, David. Let us get us started here.
Okay. Well, several questions I have, but start with one. Maybe, yeah. Okay, it's a simple question. So, Haman. So, let's start again. So Mordechai, he won't bow to Haman, and Haman is therefore very enraged, and decides to kill all the Jews. So why is he so enraged by just one Jew who is not bowing down to him? Why is he so enraged and want to kill all of the Jews? Must be some history, of course, but yeah, it's a question. I don't know. Maybe there's some hints in the Megillah itself. But,
So the question is like this, which is a question that any rational human being asks on Haman's actions, which you have one individual who really gets you mad for whatever reason, to jump from there to total annihilation of this guy's nation is troublesome. It's troublesome morally, it's troublesome logically, it's troublesome rationally. There's something wrong here. The jump of evil is too great. Right. It doesn't make sense. It's like it's almost comic.
Machon.
Almost comic. In other words, it doesn't fit. Oh, he didn't bow down to me. Okay, I'm going to kill everyone in the whole. I'm going to commit genocide because this guy didn't.
It's like cartoons when they say they'll blow up the world in order to save it.
Whatever. There are a few steps missed here, but he goes from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Well, the question would be, okay, what happened to Haman that he wants to kill all the Jews because of this incident?
Good. Okay, so what was he thinking? What's happened to him? What emotionally, ideologically? What exactly turns him on here? Wonderful, great question. Yes, let's go on.
So same idea is going from 0 to 100. What was going through the mind of the king? He hears from Haman, I want to kill all the Jews. The king is like, okay, sure, go ahead. Here you go. No problem. Why did he give so much power all of a sudden to Haman? for such a power-hungry individual.
Okay, so at the end you added a little point which is very important also, which isn't quite as clear yet. It's going to be very clear in the continuation. But you're saying, how does the king go along with this? Why does the king go along with this? Right? Haman brings up this issue. Okay, so he may be nuts, but why is the king an accomplice to something like this? Why does he agree? Why does he give it so easily? He gives over his king. So, and then at the end you're saying, and why isn't he more careful with Haman, who seems to be a dangerous individual in his own right, someone who's willing to commit genocide so quickly? The king should be the one who controls him or make sure he doesn't go over the boundaries, and he doesn't do that. He just seems to be flowing with Haman. Yefeh, מעולה. Yes.
Because I had to skim read it, so I got most of the points, but something I noticed tremendously because I'm skim reading it, it spends so many pasukim summing up this chapter, very dense in the first half, and then in the second half it spends 4 pasuks literally just describing all the methods of delivering this letter to all the nations. Why does it do that? What's it trying to stress?
Well, first of all, it's a great question. It's a great question in that as I was looking at it now, and I was seeing all the major issues we're going to have to deal with as we have did the parak, I looked at those psukim now, and I was like, we're not really going to deal with this at all. And you're right, there are a lot. It's a lot of the psuk, right? It's from pasuk Yud Bet, from pasuk 12 to pretty much the end of the parak. The last pasuk is a little different. 12, 13, 14, 15.
Spend a third of the chapter
Right,
saying that.
and it's also a lot. They're long psukim. Yud Bet and Yud Gimel are huge psukim, some of the longest in the Tanakh.
There's got to be something I'm missing.
So good. So you're saying there must. So these are the kinds of great questions that I don't have an answer for even. But this is a question that is like, why is it so? Well, it's
like the entire Megillah itself is compressed of about 10 years into about 4 chapters or something.
Right.
Esther, and it's like it spends 4 whole
full psukim and telling. So I think we'll relate to it because it's going to be important to understand the
gravity.
No, not the gravity. It's going to talk about the mechanization of genocide. Yeah. How you get things done in a complete and total way, and Mordechai is going to have to go the other way. It's also going to have a lot of psukim when Mordechai sends out these things, right? He's going to have to send out other letters, as opposed to Haman's letters that are going to have to stop it. We're going to see it's a major issue. What we talked about in the past: who gets out first and who comes in first. How quick you get out the letters.
Maybe a matter of stress in the thing.
Yes, I think it's important. It's important also, but I'm saying this off the top of my head without really delving into this too much. Keep the thought. We'll see when we get there. We'll be there in a long time, but because we have to go through a lot.
Second question, but
oh, let's go on. Yeah. Ezra, what's the big question? Hirsch, welcome. Read chapter 3 quickly.
Why did he have to give him his silver ring that he was wearing, not just something else?
The signet ring. What is the tabat? Right? The tabat's an important kli, right? We're going to see it later. He's going to take the tabat. He's going to take the ring from Haman, give it to Mordechai.
I think they used to
seal
the letters.
Right. It's the royal seal. If you have that seal on your letter, that means it is from the king.
Yeah.
That's what it is. In other words, okay. So that's what it means. It is the highest level decree that can come out. In other words, Haman can give a decree. Another minister can give a decree. They probably have their own signet rings. But to give the signet ring of the king, there's nowhere to go from there. That's the highest level decree that could possibly be. Okay. There's no way to come back from that. Right? That's what it also says. Ktav asher nichtav b'tabat hamelech en lashiv. Something that has been signed by the king, you can't bring back because who are you going to go to? Who are you going to ask to change it? The king? You can't. There's no way out. Okay? Hirsch, you there? You got to read this so that you just go ahead. You read. These are great questions. We'll get another 7. We'll get some more good questions. We're only 5 guys here, so let's see if we can get some more good questions in.
Oh, I know it's a good question.
I'm sure it's a good question.
So, we'll read from the pasuk 7.
Mm-hmm.
It says, in the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of the King Ahasuerus, Pur, where I derive the word, for Purim, was cast in the prison of Haman from day to day and from month to month to the 12th month, which is Adar. So my question here is one: does it mean that he made the lottery in Nisan, and then the lottery became like, okay, it's gonna be Adar, so they waited another 11 months or 12 months until the final
solution. Unfortunately, that's what you could call it. But yes, until the final solution.
So this was okay.
But, correct.
So I guess there was like they kept it silently, like for themselves. They didn't say anything to nobody. Like, was it a secret?
No, they send out the letters. No. Well, first of all, what you're saying is fascinating because the Malbim is going to say something very much like you. That there was a secret. There was a secret happening here. But it seems in the Pshat level, they sent this out, and it was not a secret at all. Not only is it not a secret, it may actually be for Haman's. It's not bad to have a long time to prepare for this, right? As it says.
And the second question would be like, why did they make a lottery bichlal, like in the first place?
Right? Okay, so the lottery here. What's the keta of the lottery? Why does he decided to kill the people? Why does he have to have a lottery to know the day? This is a really important thing. Now, this may have been just a little point. I'll just raise it now already because that's going to be one of the big issues we deal with, the depth issues, right? If you guys hear, okay, so he did a lottery, whatever he did a lottery for. We said that's like a little part of the Megillah. You know, just like we maybe hear what the king wore or what his party was like. So it's what happened.
It's significant because it determines the date when it all will start. Like.
What is even more significant, and that's the name of the holiday.
Pur, yeah. So
Pur, that's what it says in Perek Tet. That's what it's going to say. It's going to Al Shem Karu, Al Ken Karu Yamim Ele Purim, Al Shem Pur. You know what? Everyone, you sort of you have to read it twice. You have to say, this is why they called it Purim, because of the Pur. The Pur is the Goral, is the lottery, and you stop a second. You go, excuse me.
The lottery of the women?
No, the lottery of when they're going to kill the Jews, and then you're like, this was not such a major issue in this in the Megillah. In other words, I could think of 100 other names that seem to be more significant in the story than to call it Lottery Day, double Lottery Day, Purim, right? Too, Purim. What in the world? Why is the lottery become the name of the Chag? That's the name of the verse. In the Megillah, it says that's what it's called. Al Ken Karu Yamim Ele Purim. They call it Purim. Al Shema Pur. Even in Perek Tet, it doesn't seem to give it to him. So it says, and he peeled Pur, and he did a lottery, and that's why we call it. And then it goes on. It doesn't have any relation to that. So the lottery seems to be a tiny issue. Even in our story, it becomes the name of the Chag. And why in the world is that? Okay, more questions. We have more?
Related to the previous comment, it's not a question as much as an observation. Is the king never actually says like kill the Jews. He says do with the people as you see fit, or is good in your eyes. That's actually katov b'eineicha. And I just noticed the order of the events as well. Like the silver is given to you, the people also. I wonder, I don't know, I just wonder if there's something interesting there, why the silver comes first before the people. It's like the people are almost like a second thought. Like, oh yeah, and by the way, the people. So it's not so much a question as an observation.
It's an observation. I know he's talking about the money and the people when the king talks when it answers Haman. And just at this point, the money is an issue here. Okay, the money is sort of what Yosef mentioned also before. What exactly is going on with the money is a huge question here. Okay, we're gonna have to bring it up.
If I'm reading it correctly, it means that he's bribing Achashverosh, essentially. Like he's telling him, like, yeah, these people are a problem, but if you let me kill them, I'm gonna give you
10,000 things of silver, right?
Yes, though at the same time it seems like the king is washing his hands.
From what we deduce, it's 10,000 kick-outs in total, no?
Yeah. Which just you realize it's like people in the Greeks.
It's like 200 billion or something.
Right. So the Greeks, when the Greeks told the total amount of spending of the whole Persian Empire in a year, it was like 12,000 12,000 bars of
So-
silver. So this number is astronomical, 10,000.
So
Okay, and this is what Haman seems to be offering to give to the king. And then the king answers, Hakesef natun lach.
$280 billion worth, according to today's estimates.
Okay, right, so that's a lot of money.
The king is washing his hands. He's by not saying like, okay, you get the money and kill the or destroy, maybe to use the words written, to destroy the Jewish people. He's saying, oh, and do what is good in your eyes of the people, and that's why I guess it says in the next statement that says the king's scribes were summoned, etc. And everything was written exactly as Haman had dictated. Doesn't say what
The king dictated.
right?
So what Haman wants and what the king wants also.
The king is not actually commanding.
Right. So Haman's in charge here, very much so. The money issue, we're going to have to see exactly what's happened. And when he says, Akezef natun lecha, one reading can be, the king says, forget the money. Forget the money. The money's by you. I don't care. I don't need the money. I want, and the people to do whatever you want. The Kesef natun lecha. We're going to have to see how that plays out. Wait, we're going to go around and we'll get to you in a second.
So
We're going to be in the Hershey.
I have like a major issue with Haman.
So do I. I mean,
he's just gone over to the king,
yeah.
right? And he's literally just gone ahead and proposed mass genocide. And the king just gives over his signet ring like that.
Right. Who said that? Who said that here? You said that, right?
Are you saying that the king has like no critical?
You said that?
Very quick
Like,
to
he-
concede or whatever.
He's not asked any of his other ministers' opinions, and we even see that the ministers are still around because it says Haman was raised above the prince's seats. So we do know they're somewhere. We don't know where, but Achashverosh has just gone from seeing this guy go from 1 to 2 billion.
Right.
You know, and I was like, yeah, I don't see any problem with that. I mean, go kill my own people in my own kingdom. Do as you see fit.
Right.
Like, what?
What?
So, what does it
Definitely.
mean by the edict was disturbed in Shushan?
That what?
That the edict was disturbed in Shushan.
The nature of administration. They say it from the state because that's the center of the administrative control of the state, the empire.
Says that the edict was disturbed in Shushan, the capital. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was bewildered. What does it mean by that?
Which
Taking
part?
back, he wants to genocide the Jews. Why, king?
It's like,
Wait, what are you answering? Which part are you answering? What exactly
the
is
bewildered part.
is that the part that bothers you? The bewildered part?
yeah, like it sounds like the whole city was bewildered.
Well, the ear. Remember, we divided between the Shushana Bira and the ear Shushan. This is where you see it for the first time really clearly.
So it was
There's Shushana Bira. Vadat nitna b'Shushana Bira. The capital city gave the decree, and the city, the suburbs of the city, they were navocha. They don't know what to do about themselves. They're in serious trouble.
Is this an example of the differences between the different classes in society?
Yes, it seems to be. There's Shushana Bira and the
Another thing I
Shushan.
wanted to talk about is when Mordechai didn't bow down to Haman, he became so offended to this that he went to the king and said, "We must slaughter all the Jews." What is the reason that Mordechai never bowed to Haman? That he never respect him, or is it
It
because
was an
Jews
idol that he
don't?
was wearing.
Was it what?
One second, no, don't answer so quickly. That is the question of the parak. What Hirsch asked now. What Hirsch answered.
I had the same question, but I had a comment, so that's okay. It's
Okay.
totally answered.
That
It felt like that was always already answered.
that question
It's the most
is
fundamental.
really
Yeah.
the most important question in the whole Megillah, actually, because it sets off the change
Yeah,
of
right,
events.
Or
That
if
starts
he
it
never
off.
wore that, he probably wouldn't have been able to down down.
You're already saying all kinds of things, Ezra, that you know from the
He's
Midrash.
very smart. He's very learned.
He is.
So
The problem is you can't be learned before you learn it.
Right.
That's a good. Learn it before you learn it. And a lot of us are. We sort of
That's
assume
why I
all
never
kinds of
thought that
things.
Question. Like I already know why he.
I
did it,
understand, right?
And like that's why I don't.
I mean, just based
But
on
let me just tell you that Chazal have answers, but every single Perush asks this question. In other words, really what Hirsch asked, that's the heart of the whole Megillah. In other words, it's Mordechai.
It was the same answer coming up again and again. I mean, the whole point is to resist the power, which is what he's doing, which is what he's supposed to be doing.
It's going to be somewhat the answer, but here it's going to be suddenly jumping. I agree. That's what we're talking about, because that's the way I'm explaining the Megillah. But we're going to have to see exactly what the problem is in this sense. Okay, and what happened here? Why? Until now, Mordechai was part. Yosef, in this sense, Mordechai until now was an accomplice to the state. He helps. He saved the king. He doesn't do anything to stop Esther from going. In other words, he is part and parcel, and he's part of the government. He's Yoshev B'Shar HaMelech. He is part of the government. Suddenly, you, a government official, are going against the law. That we haven't seen yet from Mordechai. Now, when I already said Vashti and Mordechai connected the two when we said
he was hiding Esther for as long as possible.
It's according to the Malbim. According to the Malbim, we say that he. What?
Is a Malbim a rabbinical commentator?
Yeah.
He's a Rav?
Yeah. No, I'm saying for sure you could say that. When it says Vatila Kacheser, it doesn't say how much he was trying to keep her out. It says Vatila Kach. It seems like he wasn't offering her in, but he didn't resist when they took her. Again, you have to read the things here, and then whichever way. I'm not saying my way is correct in this sense, but I think it will build into a story that is readable. So, Tov. But we're not the first people to ask the question about Mordechai. The Gemara itself, in one of the really interesting statements, in Masechet Megillah and Daf Yud Bet Amud Bet, even though I wrote 12a, it's 12b. I'm sorry. The Gemara brings the pasuk Ish Yehudi Haya B'Shushan Abira Ushmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimi ben Kish Ish Yemini, and they asked the question we asked: Yehudi Yemini, is he a Judean or a Binyamite? How does that work? Yehudi Yemini.
Both, no?
So right. So one of the easiest answer is that he's a Benjamite from the kingdom of Judah. But the Gemara brings all kinds of options, and then
couldn't we say that the Binyaminites are a subgroup of Am Israel, and Am Israel later became known as Judeans?
Because then you're accepting all Binyamites as Jews.
No, he's a subgroup of
of the Judean government.
Subgroup.
No, they're one of the tribes, the few tribes that were part of the kingdom of Judea was Benjamin, Judah, probably Shimon, even though they sort of disappeared at some point. But they comprised, as opposed to the 10 tribes living in the kingdom of Israel, which was taken, we said, 100 years before the exile.
I was also saying, since Am Israel became known as Jews, that's what I was mostly saying. But yeah, you're right.
But that's later. That's way later when they become known as Jews in that sense. They become known as Jews because Jews comes from Judah.
Yeah,
that's where the word Jew come from.
That the ethnic shift from like Israelites, Am Israel to like Judean is like, I read something that's in Megillat Esther. It says it in Esther.
Interesting from go Yafeh. Tov. Okay, we have Rava who's going to come and says like this. Rava said, it's the first source here on your sheet. You guys could take a look at it. Rava said, Knesset Israel. This is like a spiritual entity. The congregation of Israel at the time said this from an opposite perspective, not as a boast. In other words, saying, yeah, Mordechai is ours, Mordechai is from us. No. But as a complaint. Listen to the complaint.
Rava is Rabbi Yohanan?
No, Rava is Rava. Rava is an Amorah in a later Amorah. Excuse me? Right here. Very beginning. Rava, okay?
So they're scorning him.
They're going to critiquing him. See what a Judean has done to me, and how a Benjamite has repaid me. Now, I have criticism for a Judean and a Benjamite. Okay, who are you? What a Judean has done to me is referring to the responsibility of Judah. Who's Judah? David. David, the king of Judah. David did not kill Shimi, although he was liable to the death penalty.
Wait.
I'm going to read it out, okay, and then I'm going to go back. The grave consequences of this failure included that Mordechai was born.
Okay.
Mordechai was born. That's the first horrible thing that happened. Mordechai was born.
From him.
And it was he against whom Haman was jealous, leading Haman to issue a decree for all the Jewish people. And then he goes on, and how a Benjamin has repaid me is referred to the fact that Saul, who is a tribe of Benjamin, did not kill the Amalekite king Agag immediately, for whom Haman was later bought and caused the suffering to the Jewish people. Rava says in this pasuk, there are two people who I have issues with. I have an issue with King Saul, who didn't kill, I hope you guys know some of this story, who didn't kill the king of Amalek, Agag. when he had the chance, and because of this we had Haman. But I am equally critical of David HaMelech, who didn't kill Shimei, who was from the family of Shaul. And when David was running away from his son Avshalom, who was trying to kill him, Shimei comes out, this guy, because Shimei comes out and curses him and throws pebbles at him, and David HaMelech doesn't kill him.
David HaMelech gives orders to Shlomo.
Shlomo, way later he gets him, right. But apparently he has enough time to have children, Shimei. Just as Agag has enough time to have children. And Shimei has children. At the end, right, Mordechai ben Yair ben Shimei. He's a relation of Shimei, of this guy who's coming from here. And they say, "Oi, David, you should have killed him. Because if you would have killed him, then what? We wouldn't have this crazy guy who made Haman want to kill us." We also have problems with Haman. It's not that Haman's perfect, Haman's okay. We're also angry at Shaul.
But the saying is equal, which is...
It's fascinating to put them the two, right? We're angry.
So basically,
They throw everyone under the bus. Throw David under the bus, Shul under the bus, and they have them equal. We don't like Haman, we don't like Mordechai. This statement, Rava's statement here is like, whoa! Anybody who reads it, you have to read it twice just to see, is this really what he's saying?
Is this why we have the mitzvah of drinking on Purim?
Maybe. That's a lo yada ben Rava lelo Rava. Yeah, in this case. The other opinions here were not like this. What you said here, right? Rava said the opposite perspective means everyone else was saying, no, we were boasting they're ours. Every tribe tried to claim Mordechai. Yehuda wanted him. Benjamin. So Rava says, no, nobody wants him. He was a problem.
But Rav, my apologies. What was the reason? Are we getting to the reason why Haman did? Mordecai.
We're going to, but this is the major source of seeing that your easy reading in the beginning of, oh yeah, we understand why he didn't bow down to him, is not so easy reading. Rava.
To them at that point, we get that.
Well, we'll get there, but Rava flushes out the feeling of he's crazy. As when you read it simply, when you read the chapter, you're like, no, don't not bow down. It's dangerous. What are you doing? And it's more implied that Mordechai Hare is Mr. You already had him as the no, you already have him as the one who doesn't want to go around, who doesn't follow orders. What's the better word? Rebellious, or you have. But until now, Mordechai is exactly the opposite of rebellious. He changed his name, lives in Shushan Abira, has a daughter, changed her name too. They're completely part of the Persian movement here. We never seen anything especially Jewish about Mordechai. We haven't seen anything that he's done that has done from his Jewish sense. Suddenly, boom, he comes and this is like, this no. This I'm not willing to do. I'm not going to bow down to Haman. You have to ask.
So he's an assimilated Jew.
They casted him out, saying that, listen, you're becoming too much of a Persian. Stay away from us.
And then
they turn around and say, why didn't you bow down?
Exactly, but they're saying if you're a Persian, at least continue being a Persian. Listen, why did you suddenly decide to be Jewish now? Be Jewish at home and say Kiddush. Don't go in front of this crazy guy and don't bow down to him. I mean, you could understand the statement. They're doubly angry at him, right? Up until now, you're doing this. Okay, we're not so happy about this, right? We saw that Chazal, we're not so happy about him going into politics. But now when you're in politics, but this is really the story. I'm going to get to what he said in a second. This is really the story. And this is the depth of the machloket. The machloket of the shtetl Jew as opposed to the political Jew. The shtetl Jew says, just stay away from them. Just stay. We don't want your good, we don't want your bad. We realize that you could possibly do good when you're there, but we also realize that your damage is just as horrible as your good could be. In other words, you could do great things when you're a governor, but the damage you could cause is also great. So just stay away. And this is exactly what's happening. They say, at first they were like, Esther got in there, interesting, but look at the damage that could be caused, and now he's causing the damage. Yes.
Wait, didn't Jabotinsky and Machon have this dichotomy?
Yeah, Jabotinsky.
He wanted to make religious Jews second-class citizens, no?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
I've never heard Yamach Shimon Jabotinsky in my life.
I don't know. I've heard he wanted to make us second-class citizens. That's
And
why
now you have it on camera.
And now it's on there.
But the dichotomy of he came up with this dichotomy of shell Jew versus political Jew.
I imagine
Maybe he's like reiterating this and it's something.
But all the Zionists were dealing with that issue, and he's in.
Also, what was I going to say? Regarding.
Classical.
Oh, come on. Oh, wasn't Mordechai? We could say he's an assimilated Jew, like he's Jewish, but he's assimilated.
So we don't. Up until this point, we don't know anything more than that, except that he's a Baal Chesed Gadol, right? He's a huge Baal Chesed. This is important to understand. He brought his daughter in.
His kindness?
No, he was a. No, Baal Chesed means he is the owner of kindness. He owns that midah of kindness that he grew. He had Esther grow. But I want to come back, okay? Because this question this is our question, okay? What in the world was he doing? So there are actually really three different ways to answer this question. Why Mordechai wasn't willing to bow down to Haman? The first one is a very obscure midrash that tells a whole story that really, really, really doesn't make that much sense. I don't even know how to explain it really, and to give you guys a good interpretation of the midrash. But I want you to bring it to you. There's part of the midrash you have to know that exists. I guess it's important to know that exists. That has a whole backstory of Mordechai and Haman. They knew each other. They fought together. Let's read it. Let's read it. Okay.
Okay.
So the first reason we're bringing here is why he's not bowing down to Haman is a personal river. But yeah.
My apologies. You said all the Zionists were dealing with this dichotomy. Was Rabbi Kook dealing with?
Of course, Ken. Not as Harif, but of course he was dealing with the new Jew in Israel as opposed to the old Jew who was the Haredi Jew in that sense. Rav Kook though didn't obviously throw them under the bus, and he was saying there has to be some kind of fusion. But he was dealing with a new world, a new Jewish spirit, as opposed to the spirit up until his death. Yeah, okay. So take a look at the midrash here. The second source here. Yeah, this avails me of nothing. That's Haman says when he's with Zeresh after he goes to the first party, he comes back and again sees Mordechai not bowing down. He goes banana again, right? Even though he's just been raised up to the highest position, he says this is all nothing. It's not shaveh. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's what he says.
Didn't it say that Haman was just notified by his servants that he doesn't bow down?
That's in our chapter, yeah. But later, after the first party of Esther, when she invites the king and Haman's going back and says, he goes out happy and everything's great, and suddenly he sees Mordechai not bowing down again, and it ruins his day. Ruins his day. And then he goes home and starts complaining. So the midrash says that's the pasuk that the midrash is talking about. So this may be understood as was suggested by Rav Chisda. For Rav Chisda said, this one, Mordechai, came as one with the heritage of a rich man, whereas that one, Haman, came as one with the heritage of a poor man. As Mordechai had been Haman's slave master and was aware of Haman's lowly lineage, Rav Papa said he was called the slave who was sold for a loaf of bread. There is a midrash.
The Baal Turim actually
uses this and connects it. So I'm going to read it in as brought in the Dikdukei Sofrim and the Targum Yerushalmi. There are translations. They're not really translations. They're more commentaries that are brought. They're brought in Aramaic, so less people learn them. But this is the Dikdukei Sofrim who's translating the Targum Yerushalmi. It's always funny when we're translating a translation, because once they translate it to Aramaic, but that doesn't help us at all. We do better with the Hebrew. So he brings it back to Hebrew. Pam echad. Once the king gave them money and sent them as Mordechai and Haman, and sent them as generals to go capture a country. Haman took half of the money that was given and spent it. And he spent it unwisely, and nothing was remained from him. And when he came to put money into the weapons, he had nothing left. He came to Mordechai, who obviously kept all his money very wisely, as the king gave him. Haman says to Mordechai, "Can you lend me, please, the money that you have?" Mordechai says, "I will not lend it to you unless you sell me yourself as a slave." accepted it, and he lends him the money.
I heard
They wrote in the shtar, they wrote in the deed, Haman, the slave of Mordechai, sold himself to Mordechai for a loaf of bread. That's what was written in the contract. And this is when Mordechai says to Haman, a slave who has bought things. What does that mean? A slave who uses money to do anything. The slave is, whose is the slave? Whose is the money? In other words, you may do things as a slave, but everything you do, I own. Everything you do belongs to me. In other words, Mordechai, in this sense, this Midrash is bringing in, first of all, it's bringing in a whole very fascinating and very interesting to figure where in the world they're getting this from, that there is a backstory of Mordechai and Haman. They know each other. Haman was Mordechai's slave, and now that he's the top minister, he's really Mordechai's slave.
If Haman's someone from a poor lineage, and he only got raised to power recently, how on earth did he have such an astronomical amount of money to bribe the king with?
That's a great question. But that we'll have to ask anyway. Even if he's not of low lineage, even if he's high lineage, he shouldn't have that amount of money no matter what. The amount of money we're talking about there is as you said, it's there's no way he can have that money. Part of it, we'll have to explain what he's saying when he says 10,000. But that we're going to get to later, okay? But you're correct. But anyway, this Midrash is saying, when this Midrash comes out, so why isn't Mordechai bowing down to him?
Because he owns it.
Yeah, I'm going to bow down to you. You're my slave. You're nothing. You're mine.
Possession.
Yeah, I'm not going to bow. So that's one kivun. We're not going to go there at all, but I want to bring it out as a possibility. The Chazal see this as a possibility. The Chachamim see this as a possibility that there is some kind of personal animosity between the two. So, Mordechai has a very mizalzel, very derogatory relation to Haman. He sees him as a slave. He sees that his slave. There's no way I'm going to bow down to you. Yeah.
All to brings a different story. So this was actually during, probably it was mentioned in Ezra about the time when the Jews were going to try to build the Beit Mikdash, but then the non-Jews came in you can't do it. You're all this, blah blah blah, and so they said we're going to send a person to the king and ask him and everything all. And so the Jews were like, okay, we'll send one too with him. The person who the non-Jews nominated was Haman. The person who the Jews nominated was Mordechai. Haman didn't know how to use his food wisely and everything and all. So before, on the trip, he ate all of it at the beginning, and so later on the trip, he needed food, and Haman and Mordechai had his food and knew how to use it wisely and everything and all, and how to.
So I want to see that. I never heard that one. That's very interesting.
The Baal says it's written somewhere. It's on the Baal.
So I'd like to see that. Great. That's interesting. It's the same story as here, and just with a different beginning, in a sense.
So he actually sold him a piece of bread, and actually said he owes me bread. Okay. Not a specific amount of money.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Both of them though deal with this same issue. That's more interesting to me than this one, because that connects them back to Yerushalayim and the Beit HaMikdash, which is important in itself. Okay. Now we're going to Ezra's answer. There's the answer that Ezra threw out here. Let's see, there are two sources. We have to notice the difference between the terms that are used in the sources. Okay, it's very important, even though they seem to be the same thing. The first one is from Masechet Megillah, as you see here, 19a, and the other is Esther Rabbah. Just so you understand, Masechet Megillah, we've talked about many times, has a huge collection of midrashim, more than any other book has in any way in the order. But there's also there are also other large corpuses of midrash, large collections of midrash. Probably the most well-known being Esther Rabbah, just the Midrash Rabbah, the basic midrashic halacha, midrash agada on the Tanakh. Esther is a large one. Yachasit, comparable to other books in the Tanakh. Esther has a very large group of midrashim. So let's first for the Megillah. That's what Mordechai saw, in that he acted so zealously concerning Haman. In other words, what did he see to not bow down? Concerning this matter, again, they're reading psukim, they're reading words from the psukim, it's not so important to us right now, was because Haman had made himself an object of idol worship.
Wait,
So
please repeat that.
that could be
You have it right there, the second to last one.
that could be interpreted in two
Good.
ways. One
No,
one way is
no, the
that
first
he
page.
literally had
The
like
first page.
say a cross or something, and he had tucked it away somewhere, so you could always think, the Jews bowing down to a cross. Or the other way is that
No,
he
first
thinks
page.
of himself as literally an idol before them.
But can we
Yeah,
please
people bowing
elaborate?
down to him.
Why was he?
Like as
Why
if
was he
people
made?
bowing down to a priest or
Yeah.
something.
So was he
Exactly.
made out to be an object of idol worship because people were bowing towards him, and this is seen as avodah zarah, and not like just bowing to like a politician or a king?
Good. Right. So 1 second. So Hirsch is noticing well, and as Yosef also flushed
There
out
is a
here,
difference, that's the
what exactly happened here? And so let's look at the Midrash Rabbah so we could notice the two definitions. The Midrash Rabbah says lo yichra velo yishtachaveh. That's on right our pasuk, right? He doesn't bow down. The chikantaranaya, what he was someone who's searching for a fight, Mordechai. V'overa gzirat hamelech, and he's going over the king's decree. The king decreed that everyone has to bow down to Haman. What's going on? Now, the Midrash flushes out here that this is not a simple thing to do. Mordechai, what he didn't realize, he didn't smell what's going on here. He didn't realize that what he's going to do has these horrible possibility of horrible retaliation. So there must be a really great reason. Ela shetziva Achashverosh yishtachavot leHaman. So the king said you have to bow down to Haman. But what did Haman do? Chakak avodat kochavim al libo. He put a cross. Okay, exactly what it says. He made a figurine of idol worship, some god. V'nitkaven kedei sheyishtachavu la'avodat kochavim. And Haman wanted the people who were bowing down to him to be bowing down to his idol.
So the sources don't mention specifically what the idol was. It says it was a Persian god in their pantheon.
What we don't care, we don't care in any
The
sense.
specifics doesn't matter. The fact that he had avodah zarah, like on a small little statue?
Chakak alibo says it seemed over his heart. He had this. It may have been a tattoo for our purposes. Chakak alibo. He put on his heart. I don't know.
All we know is before the time of Christianity, so it could have been then.
It wasn't a cross. Yeah.
No, maybe
they got crosses from him.
Maybe
I don't
they had
know.
like this little stitch made out of cloth or fabric or something, and they did stitch that into his robe.
100%. Anything goes. I don't care. Really, it doesn't matter to us. Really, but something was there.
Mordechai figured it out.
But exactly, Mordechai realized that this is what's happening. So the Midrash is very concise. The Midrash says there was actual, straight out avodah zarah going on here. The Gemara says that he made himself an object of idol worship. Asa etzmo aloha. He made himself avodah zarah. That's a little more, there's more room to finesse with that statement.
Wow.
In other words, what exactly does it mean that someone turned himself into an idol? Well, we know.
Like a pope or a celebrity. They turn themselves into an idol.
Yeah. Stand in front of the others. Demand that everybody bows down in front of you.
They say, I'm a
Treat
holy
you as the
person.
As what? So a celebrity, are we not allowed to bow down to a celebrity? Am I not allowed to say, oh, at a concert? I mean, it's stupid maybe, but can I? But are you not allowed to? Is that halachically?
At a concert, you could say you're
Actually,
just enjoying
yes.
yourself. You're being festive. There's a room for excuse. Individually, when a person is telling you to bow down to them because what's it called? I'm a holy person. I'm a person with authority. You bow down.
So
to me,
authority.
something else.
What's wrong with authority?
Authority is basically saying that we call ourselves God's servants. Now, there's no one in between us and God. So someone putting themselves in between that, you could classify them as.
But in what way? Starting putting. I have a prime minister. He's in between me and in that sense. Me and he's more important than I am. He can tell me to do things, and I have to do it. Right? Where exactly is the point that he's putting himself between you and God? And instead, not the Pope puts himself between you and God.
Down.
the bowing.
Bowing down is something that you reserve for God.
But people bow down all the time. People bow down to Jewish kings. You have to bow down to a Jewish king.
Japan,
It happens all the
The
time.
Jewish king is anointed by Jewish priests. It's something that's God permitted.
Okay, they bow down to Esav. Yaakov bows down to Esav.
And also bowing down.
They bow to non-Jewish kings. It seems to be that was also something that happened.
Agagite.
Okay, what? Now you pushed in another thing.
I mean, it's not just anyone. It's someone.
Okay, one second. So you added something else. You just threw in something else. Your questions are good, right, Yosef? I'm not attacking you to say it's wrong. I'm saying, but you have to make it clear. In other words, it doesn't seem at any point in history that was a problem to prostrate yourself before a goyish king either. There was no issue to bow down to anyone. If I'm not mistaken, Yaakov may bow down to Paro.
Are you saying it's okay for you to bow down to a pope?
No.
A pope is an interesting question. The pope, that would be the question, and what exactly is the pope?
Yeah.
That would be the question. If I'm bowing to the pope, am I bowing? Really, I'm saying I'm bowing down to his God. Possibly.
You're respecting
Possibly.
what he stands for.
Possibly. So that may be more the midrash in a sense. In other words, he had the idol there, and it may be what the Gemara is saying also. Very much so. He made himself a god. It says, which possibly means sort of like Paro in Egypt, who saw himself as God, right? He was the god of who knows what. He was in the pantheon. But yeah, Hirsch, you wanted to say?
To add a bit more context in regard to bowing, for example, in like Japan and maybe even other East Asian cultures, they bow in a way that's analogous, like a handshake, like in situations like especially like this. Could that maybe add some context to this? Perhaps in other parts of the Asian continent, Persia isn't Asia. They did something like that.
It could be, but what we have to remember, I have to go back a second. The king sends out a decree that everyone has to bow down to Haman. Okay, this is we haven't seen anything like this until now in Persia. Yeah. There seems to be like something happened here that suddenly they have to bow down to Haman. It's not the common practice. Something strange is happening, and all the king's servants are prostrating themselves before Haman. Something weird just happened here, and this is what Mordechai is reacting to. I'm sure. I'm sorry. I don't have it in writing, but I'm sure that when the king went out to Persia, even though he probably never went out to Persia, but when he would possibly go out to Persia, everyone would bow down, Jews including, Mordechai included, would bow down to the king. Something happened here. So Yosef threw out possibly as an Agagite. Maybe there's a Maleki happen here. There may be some kind of spiritual war going on here, nationalistic war going on. Something's going on here. That's possible. But something happened, and we're going to have to find out what happened here. That Mordechai suddenly broke, and suddenly I just want to point out how problematic this is. That Mordechai is the one who told Esther, don't say where you're from. Yeah. Don't say where you're from. Don't tell. And then this guy in front of everyone or whatever, and when they ask him, right, how does it happen? He bows down. Haman doesn't really see what's happening. And according to the story, we don't know that Haman doesn't react straight to Mordechai. People come to Mordechai and say, what are you doing? And they say it day after day, right? And then he tells them, I'm Jewish. And they go, oh, that's interesting. And then they go tell Haman. And then Haman noticed what's going on. No, it's like the worst possible thing. They didn't even notice or didn't know. And suddenly he says he's Jewish. By the way, an interesting point. That means they didn't know he was Jewish. They didn't know Mordechai was Jewish. Yeah. How in the world does that work in our usual picture of Mordechai, long beard and tzitzis and payas, right? How could they have not known he was Jewish?
Because in the context, we know he was assimilated.
Exactly. I think that strengthens our picture that they're completely there. But suddenly, for some reason, this is unacceptable. And he's willing to throw everything on the line for this. That's why I'm strengthening the question. Okay, so if it's Avodah Zarah, it goes to the basic Jewish tenet that's the line. We know that's the line. The line that there are three lines. There's Avodah Zarah, idol worship. There's Gilui Arayot, which is
kill someone and
no. Gilui Arayot is
murder, idolatry, and idol worship.
And rape.
No, not rape. Gilui Arayot is
adultery.
It's adultery, and it doesn't have to be adultery. It's anything.
Halachically, what is considered sexually forbidden.
Thank you. That's Arayot, and Retzach and killing someone. Right. Those are the big three. Those are the ones you cannot go over. And here's one of the three, and that fits well into the story. The only problem is It doesn't.
got,
It's a midrash. It doesn't
Exactly,
say it
doesn't say.
anywhere in the whole book. It doesn't say there's an idol. It doesn't say there's it. It doesn't say that maybe other Jews didn't bow down to him or did bow down to him. It doesn't seem to be the issue. It doesn't seem to be what's happening. Even though, I'm just going to say, even though the words korel mishtachaveh really appear often in Judaism, in other books in the Tanakh, as relating to dafka, the service of a god. Korel mishtachaveh, right? He doesn't. Koreh is bend his knees and bow down. That term is usually one used in other books in the Tanakh and a religious aspect in the service of Hashem usually. So you could hear it. Chazal are not coming out of the blue here. In other words, obviously the prostrating yourself in front of someone, there is
leeway.
There's a religious connotation to it.
So how does that contrast with the terminology used in the cases you mentioned earlier, where a person is bowing down to another person? That's used the same?
So they use mishtachaveh, but they don't usually have korel mishtachaveh. So you could, all right, so that's one way to go, and that seems to be what Chazal we're hearing here.
I think you all mention of how it's not mentioned anyway that Haman is actually wearing an idol. Is basically, it seems to me like an excuse, because the Jews have already been put through so much over bowing down over one avodah zarah. This is, I think, the Megillah's way of saying that you have to find it in the context that Haman was wearing an avodah zarah to give an excuse for Jews who were bowing down to him, because everyone bowed down to him, but it's to say that they didn't know they were bowing down to the idol.
And only Mordechai figured it out.
And only Mordechai figured it out.
It could be. I remind you. I'm asking. I'm saying something and going back at the same time. In that, it doesn't say that the Jews bow down to Haman. Any other Jew bow down to Haman. And we don't know any other Jew meeting Haman.
What are they relevant?
Here's the thing. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that.
I'm sorry.
So it says that they didn't know Mordecai was Jewish and everything. Oh well. Did they know if there was any Jews?
That's a great question. Great question.
Mordecai said he was Jewish. Maybe he was probably the only Jew as far as Haman knew.
It could be. We don't know. It's very interesting. The other Jews I met, we don't hear anything about them till next chapter, where the Jews are going to start screaming and crying when the decree comes.
When he says kill all the Jews, he's probably saying kill Mordecai, not other Jews, because there is no other Jews.
Well, he wouldn't.
And then all of a sudden the Jews are like, "Oh my God, he's gonna kill us!" and everything. And Haman's like, "Well, you know what? I wasn't going to, but yeah, I am."
It could be. It could be that's how it developed. It could be.
And they literally like.
But I want to go back and give a.
But we know that the Jews are scattered and mixed within the Persian people.
For sure.
For one thing, they attended the meal, so we know that they were around. The next thing is that we know they come up to after him and ask him, "Why aren't you bowing down?"
No, those are the king's servants ask him that.
Yeah, but
the Jews don't ask him that.
Here, there's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people.
Haman's going.
Haman says.
Haman. Yeah, he's going to know about them at some point. Yeah, he may have done his homework afterwards, but yeah.
In regards to the individual actions of Jews, other than Esther and Mordechai, are their actions relevant to Megillat Esther, other than those fighting to defend the Jews? In general, we mentioned that other Jews, other than Mordechai and Esther, are not mentioned in the story.
Right.
Are their actions relevant to like the plot?
I hear you. Right now, no. Up until this point, no. At some point, there'll be a little more, even though not much. Even then. So we've seen two directions till now. The personal one that we saw, the midrash that he was his slave. I said we should know it. I don't know what to do with that exactly.
Very far-fetched.
It's far-fetched, but again, Chazal they understood that I think didn't really happen. That is not. They're not saying, "Oh yeah, we know this is what happened." Chazal don't do that.
Chazal doesn't know what really happened. They're just saying a bunch of stuff. And they're like,
Chazal are hiding meaning in stories.
It's an analogy.
They're exactly. In other words, they're hiding meaning in stories. That's what they do.
Basically, they try to make a metaphor.
I mean,
it's a metaphor, right? That you have to really understand. But I haven't gotten to the bottom of this, so I don't know what exactly they're trying to teach us here. With the idol worship, it's sort of an easy answer to a very tough question. Why is he willing to risk his life? Because this is what Jews do. Jews risked their life with. Now it's an important statement. In other words, Mordechai is saying, and it fits into the picture also. Mordechai is saying, I'm going to strengthen that before I go in a different direction, okay? Because our direction of reading of the Megillah is in a different direction than this. But it makes sense. And more than just the basic, Mordechai is saying, I am a Jew.
Like a statement to
I am a Jew. There is a gvul, a boundary to what I'm willing to do. In other words, change my name, change my dress, up until here. This a Jew cannot do. And if the whole world goes up in flames, so be it. This is what God Himself, Hashem Himself, told us that this is the end. This is the red line. From here on, it's up to Him. He told us how to act in this act. It's a huge statement of faith. In other words, I will use my mind and all my political cunning to move ahead until, boom, I hit against this line. At this line, I say, Hashem, you have commanded me that this is the utmost that I can go to, and I can't cross this line. It is a major statement of faith for someone to say something like that. It is where he shows that he's Jewish. It's where he shows you would say, this is the defining line in the Megillah.
It's a big
up
deal,
until now.
since he's so similar.
Exactly. I'm saying this is the statement where Mordechai says, no more. This division of being a Jew at home and a goy outside, up until here, I can't do it anymore. Once you say go over the idol worship, I lose my rational Western mind and I become a religious fanatic. But in the depth of it, and that this is what Hashem said cannot be gone over. So in that sense, it's a very positive light on Mordechai. It's understanding that Mordechai knew where the lines were, and that the fact that you're assimilated doesn't mean you lost everything. There's places where you have to. So I'm going to say the same thing, just on a political, Jewish level of understanding how politics work. And this is, again, a big chidush in my mind of Yoram Chazoni that I told you about the Dawn in the book The Dawn, where he is going to state. You right?
I left my baguette up on the metal rack
Like
near
you
the
saw
roof.
a ghost, man. What's up?
Yeah, the Dawn. I said the Dawn, and that was boom.
Forgot about it.
It dawned upon you.
My materit katan.
So you want to run and get it? It's right out here.
No, it's not on the roof. It's on the, never mind. It's not relevant.
Listen. Okay. So I wanna point out.
Almost two with it.
Okay, I want to go back. Okay, to our story reading. Okay, remember our story reading of the Megillah. Okay, because it's building into this. We talked about how Achashverosh's attempt of control was a rather benign one in the beginning. It was sort of
Superficial.
no, it wasn't superficial, but it was very inclusive. His control was an inclusive control. Many people who he's listening to, many different people advising him, giving people place, right? Ashtiya kadat enones. People can choose to be part. No, it was maybe a benign tyranny, a dictatorship, a nice dictatorship. I don't know how to say it exactly. A strong democracy. I don't know, however you want to put it. It was inclusive, and it's important that the king at every point had to ask. He asked people whatever, right? He asked people about the queen. He didn't think about it. They told him. He asked people what to do with Vashti. He has his advisors there. There's a whole picture in Parak Aleph. We have a whole picture of a government that works. Now the king is we talked about the thirst for power. That thirst for power is super powerful in itself. You have a man of spirit. It's called a man of... Yeah, but it's a powerful thing to have. He is held in check by the numerous opinions going around. In other words, he is like power unleashed, but it's leashed. In other words, because if he wants to do something, well, he has this guy saying this, and he has this guy saying this, and he has this guy, and he's listening. Once you start listening, you can't completely go bananas off in one way, because you always have a contradicting view telling you something else. That is how government really works, and it works well. To have
He was a fair king.
you need to have other opinions to be able to rule justly. You need it. There's no way one man can be so wise and so perfect that he'll be able to understand reality all by himself. It's pashut impossible.
Except for Solomon.
Except for what?
Solomon.
It didn't work. But I don't think he tried to do this so much himself either. In other words, we don't see that him that was his issue. But King Achashverosh is definitely not that way until now. And then we read the Vashti trauma. But then we got to Bigtan V'Teresh trauma. What happened with Bigtan V'Teresh, this is what we did at the very end of last lesson, was suddenly his personal bodyguards, Shomrei Asaf, the ones who guard him from the outside, were in a plot to kill him. And remember, I told you, it wasn't the sort of childish reading or the elementary reading is that they wanted to kill him. And then what? What did they think in their mind is going to happen? These two guards, they're going to rule the government, the empire of 127 people? No. They are part of a plot. They're the very end, they're the spear, they're the gun that shoots. But the person who holds the gun, we don't know till this day who they were. We don't, and worse so, Achashverosh doesn't know who they are. And
my question: did Achashverosh even know Mordecai was Jewish?
He doesn't even know who the Jews are, possibly. Once again, if Mordecai is Jewish, he doesn't know who Mordecai is. He doesn't know anything about Mordecai. He heard the name, Mordecai is that guy that Esther told me at that point. He doesn't remember anything about Mordecai, probably. Okay?
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit, but it's
He probably
inconsensual.
knew
It doesn't matter.
Own him something. And so if I'm
Well, he will. He'll find it when he reads the book. But
so if Haman were to come to Achashverosh and be like, hey, can I go to Mordecai because he's not listening to me, he's not bowing down, blah blah all this, he might have some speculation. But if he says, can I kill the Jews, and doesn't even mention Mordecai, he's like, he'll be like, okay, sure, I don't care.
So just hold that, Ezra. We're gonna get to there. It's gonna take a while until we get to that point. Just keep the thought there.
Also,
but one second, Ezra.
I thought of why Achashverosh was like so like willy-nilly just to like let him do this without no much details. It's probably because he's like, Haman came to him and is like, hey, there's these people that are going up against the king.
Right.
And all of a sudden he remembers like, well, Vashti went up against me. Bigtan V'Teresh went up to me.
Good.
This is gonna probably be worse. And if Haman wants to take care of it, let's do it now before it gets worse.
That's right. That's the key one we're going to go in. What Ezra just said right now is correct. But I want to just understand. I want to go back to why he takes Haman. Okay.
So no, I just thought about Vashti, and here we see first in the case of the bodyguards, we see that they're indeed going against the king.
Mm-hmm.
To seize power, perhaps. Whereas in Vashti, when we read the story of Vashti, we keep reading Hamalka, Vashti Hamalka.
Right, Vashti Hamalka until.
Yes. But then the moment she becomes rebellious,
when it's Hamalka Vashti.
Hamalka Vashti,
right?
Which is like the queen. As a smichot, you could read it as the queen of Vashti. She's a queen of herself. She is interesting.
Hamalka of Vashti.
Yeah, I think her own rebel, but not to seize power, but.
Well, the way we explained it was that she was coming to seize, not to seize power. Yes. She wasn't coming to seize power. She was going to hold him in check. That's what she was doing. And for the king, which is that he doesn't like people hold him in check. But let's come back to our where we are now. Okay. So again, we said after these things with Bigtan and Teresh, the king takes this guy, and he puts him above all the ministers that are with him.
Lama.
1 second. And Kol Avdei Melech, now he puts out a new decree. All the king's servants who sit in the Shar HaMelech, which we said is the government, Kor'im u'mishtachavim laman, they bow down to Haman, ki ken tziva lo HaMelech. Tziva lo means alav, about him. This is what the king said to do to vis-a-vis Haman. Mordechai lo yichrav lo yishtachave. So, what the king did is he takes Haman, puts him above everyone. Everyone has to bow down to Haman. And now, Haman is the single voice that the king is going to hear from now. That picture of everyone's down and just one person is standing is a very visual statement that what the king is doing here. And again, this is what we said at the end of the last lesson. I'm sorry we're getting to the end of this lesson too, but we went through another way to get there. That the king is saying now, I made a big mistake. Listen to the problem. Bigtan v'teresh are part of a plot. And I don't know who it is. I don't know who's loyal to me. I don't know who's part of this plot. I don't know who's happy, even didn't know, but is happy that it's happening. Nobody claimed to tell me about this. None of my ministers told me a thing about this. Does that mean they didn't know? Or they just thought it may be a good idea to not let me know?
Well, he did.
Do I really?
He did remember that Esther did tell.
He's going to remember that later for sure. It's going to be an important part of how he changes his mindset. But at the moment, right now, he turns into paranoid king. Just as many kings were paranoid. Herod, one of them. Kings, Stalin, paranoid.
Wait, Herod, may you please elaborate on Herod's paranoia?
He killed his wife and his mother and his uncle.
So he did that because of paranoia, because he didn't want them to
all paranoia. Many kings. I'm not a great historian, but many kings this happens to. Okay, and again, Stalin in our time, who killed everyone who was close to him in any way, and he got rid of them some way. Okay,
because when the psychology of being a ruler, sometimes they're so power hungry they don't want anyone else to take it from them.
That's as we talked about. That's Achashverosh. That's power. So what does he do? So what do you do in this situation? You go and you take a nobody.
Oh, okay.
You take a nobody who isn't loyal to anyone. He has no power. You invest him with the power, and you say from now on, only you, only you. You, only you. I want to only hear your voice. I don't trust anyone else. Again, in the fascinating statement here, we're never going to see another advisor to the king until Haman's about to be killed. Because as opposed to first chapter, in the second chapter where there were Ne'arei HaMelech and Sarisei HaMelech, the eunuchs, and that we hear lots of people, suddenly it's all shut up. There are no more voices anymore. There's only one voice. And that's Haman's voice. A rule that only hears one voice is by default a cruel, not an evil government. By design, it has to be an evil government. Because you only hear one point of understanding. You don't have the general hearing of different opinions. A ruler who only listens to his own voice or to one of his one advisors, in effect, turns it into a complete totalitarian government that is going to be an evil one. It cannot grasp the complexity of the people you're ruling. To hear only one voice means you only have one direction. That, according to what I want to say, or what Chazoni says, and I think he's right, or at least a possible reading, is what Mordechai cannot stand. As a Jew, Mordechai cannot stand an unjust rule. And when we look through history, we see that the Jew is always the one that all totalitarian governments despise.
Because the Jew is different, they can't tolerate people who are different.
So, but the difference is on a practical level, but in a sense, it's a much deeper level. Because the Jew always says, there is a God above who is more powerful than you, who is more righteous than you, and his word is law, and never your word. When an empire is willing to hear the myriad opinions, the many different opinions, it has a possibility of being a just government. It's not like
Violating the Brit with Hashem at Matan Torah, right?
so.
Betraying?
So I'm saying on the evil that comes from the ideology of idolatry. Idolatry says that there is a partial truth. There's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And
there's no ultimate one.
There's no ultimate one truth. And once you only have partial truth, it always leads to inexcusable deeds. It always leads to evil, in that you're only seeing part of a parcel of something, never viewing it in the whole, and the ultimate, and the exclusive. The idol is always a partial truth that is seen as a complete truth, and then you can do evil things from that. There are all kinds of things. You could justify everything once you only see a small part of something. That is the danger. And that's why idolatry, that's why Jews cannot accept idolatry. In other words, the fact that it is as opposed to God, and you could ask, okay, so what? So there's an idol instead of, what's the essential problem with that? The essential problem with that is that it is limited. And the limited always will, at first it may seem fine, at first it may seem beautiful, but suddenly when it rubs up against another issue that contradicts it, it explodes into the worst evil imaginable. As we've seen throughout history, idolatry has led to the worst sins committed in the world. This is what we're talking about, killing children, and the great horrible wars we've seen in the past from unfortunately from Christianity that has decimated the world in cruelty that no one's seen for the sake of, as opposed to Hashem, who gives we just read Aseret HaDibrot, a constitution that no man has the right to override. You shall not kill. You shall not steal. These are things, cannot commit adultery. These things are, doesn't matter who you are. You could be the highest king or the lowest nobody. It holds true for you. And this is what Jews held dear to them forever. So I'm going to go back. Haman, asa atzmo Eloah. Remember how we said in that, one second, I'm just going to say this point because it's important to understand. Remember we learned in the Midrash that he made himself an idol? Not that there was an idol on his breast, but he made himself an idol. In a sense, someone who thinks he has the whole truth, he's an idol. And Jews smash idols. And that's why the empires of idols hate the Jews. Always have, throughout history. You ask yourself, what's the problem with the Jews? The Jews are nothing. The Jews are nothing. Whether two people, they're 0.0000 point of the nation. Even in any country, they're nothing. What is your problem with the Jews? They don't want to turn you into Jewish. They're not attempting to turn you. They're not trying to convert you. They just want to live their life. Why does everyone hate the Jews? Because the Jews, throughout history, would say to anyone who asks, they'll say, we hold by a higher power. And the people who want the ultimate power, they can't hear that. They can't hear that. There's a wondrous midrash defining the king, Nebuchadnezzar in this term, as a hungry crocodile, eating everything in his path. And they go to Daniel, I think it is, and they say, what are you going to, how can we, he says, it's very simple. He takes a little nail and he throws it into the crocodile's mouth. And no matter how big and how strong this crocodile is eating all these things, that nail just goes in deeper and deeper. And it's one little nail. but it causes this powerful crocodile to go bananas. The Jew, when he says, I am sorry, this is going to lead to evil, we can't accept this, that drives everyone bananas, because it's telling them, you are not the Baal Habayit, you are not the owner of this world. No matter how powerful you are not. And in this sense, Mordechai is a Jew. Mordechai HaYehudi, this is what he says to the people when they ask him, are you nuts? What are you doing, right? They say to him, the people come to him and say, what are you doing? And this is what he answers, Vayigidu lo asher hu Yehudi, I am a Jew. And as a Jew who looks for justice in this world, this is what Hashem wants in this world. He wants real justice. He wants to have the dignity, the human dignity. Well, for there to be human dignity, humanity has to have its say. And when you shut humanity up, then you're going to lose dignity. You're going to lose human dignity. You're going to destroy society and turn it into an evil, corrupt society. And this is, in a sense, when you look at the story of the Jews throughout the Tanakh, you suddenly see, you could read it in a different light. This is Abraham leaving Mesopotamia, leaving Nimrod, all the midrashim of him fighting against the idol, breaking the idols, saying, I can't live here, and going to live in this barren, nowhere land in Eretz Yisrael. Approaching Paro, Avram goes to Paro and they can't get along. He goes to Avimelech and they can't get along. Moshe coming, the ultimate, of course, is Moshe coming to Paro, the leader of the world, the God, Paro, and saying, this is not what there's a God wants something else, and I can't accept it. Throughout history, even the Tanakh itself, the Jews don't accept this aversion of justice, this destruction of society. That is what we can't accept. And this is what Hashem, giving us the Torah, this is what he's saying. The Torah is trying to form a perfect world. Right? There's a famous midrash, I have it here. I'm sorry, I went many different places here. There are a lot of things here. Wow. The one I was going to read you is here, the third page. Okay? Just look at the third page, Shabbat 88. You see? The third page, Shabbat 88, Masechet Shabbat. Reish Lakish says, what is the meaning of which is written, and there was evening and there was morning the sixth day? Why do I require the superfluous letter Hey, the definite article which does not appear in any of the other days? In other words, it says Yom HaShishi. It says Yom, right, Echad, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi, Yom Chamishi, Yom HaShishi. Hey Shishi. What does that refer to? HaShishi. That means the definitive sixth day. What's sixth day? It teaches that the Holy One, blessed He, established a condition with the act of creation and said to them, if Israel accepts the Torah on the sixth day of Sivan, that's the HaShishi. In other words, in creation itself, it's referring to the accepting of the Torah. If Israel accepts the Torah, you will exist. And if they do not accept it, I will return you to the primordial state of chaos and disorder. The world, this isn't a physical, this isn't about talking about physics, okay? This is talking about ethics in that sense. In other words, the Torah is the tikkun of the world. If it is not accepted, this world is going to be chaos in itself, and it's not worth the time. The whole world is only relevant if the ideals of the Torah are embedded in the world. It is all up to Am Yisrael accepting the Torah. If they don't accept the Torah, that's it, we're done. There's no world. Everything I created doesn't exist shouldn't exist anymore. This statement is that the Torah makes the world full and correct and whole. And it's on many different levels, but on the level Mordechai is dealing with, we're dealing with the the ethical social model of rule. Rule is a problem in the Torah. Very much so. We're going to see this in the continuous next lesson. The Torah is wary of power being wielded by anyone. Very wary of it. Not simple at all. The obvious, huge issue is when the people come to Shmuel and ask for a king, and Shmuel goes ballistic. And you're like, whoa, what is going on? It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Why are they going so ballistic about this? Right? I mean, what's going on? Tzedar, he's asking for a king. We know it's a mitzvah. No. And he says they don't want God. Right? They're going against God. What's the story? So the story is this. This is the story. When you have a man using God's image, it's a problem.
So, kind of two things, but the main one I want to talk about is when you say that the evil of the ideology of Avodah Zarah is that they only view a portion of the truth as a whole picture of the truth. Could we say that although there is an objective reality, our perception of reality is subjective, and failing to acknowledge that their perspective is subjective and only a portion of the objective truth, their mistaken view leads them to evil? Is that, could we say
That sounded pretty good. Did you write that?
Yeah, just right there.
Yeah. That sounds. I think.
So we can't say that there is an objective truth. That since human beings are inherently fallible, our perspectives are inherently subjective. Although we Jews, we have the Torah to guide us.
Well, 1 second. I want to say. I said it was very well done. I think very well. That's sort of exactly what I'm saying. But I want to add something to it. There is a way that we can somewhat reflect God's view, and how is that?
Approximation.
It says, and you could look at your source here. It says in the second page. And the second page towards the bottom. The Gemara in Shabbat Pechet, also interesting enough. The same page that we saw the other one. It says like this. Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of which it is written? You see it on the bottom of the second page? The second to last source. Rabbi Yochanan said, what is the meaning of what is written? The Lord giveth the word. The women that proclaim the tidings are great host. Whatever, I don't know the translation. I read in English. I brought it for you guys in English, otherwise I bring it in Hebrew. But let's see what it means. It means that each and every utterance that emerged from the mouth of the Almighty divided into 70 languages. A great host. And similarly, the school of Rabbi Ishmael taught with regard to the verse, behold, my word, not like fire, declares the Lord. It is my word, not like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that shatters a rock. Just as this hammer breaks a stone into several fragments, so too each and every utterance that emerged from the mouth of the Holy One, blessed He, divided into 70 languages. Now this bitui, shiv'im lashon, is more known to us who learn Torah as shiv'im panim. Have you ever heard this term? The 70 faces of the Torah, or the 70 facets of the Torah.
I've heard like a few times.
The Shivim Panim. What does that mean? It means that to really grasp the Torah, there are 70 different ways of viewing it. How could that be? That's what you just said. Objectively, there's God. But when God brought His word, when He spoke to us, it broke into 70 languages. If I want to reform, not reform as reform, but form again the word of God that was given, I need 70 different opinions to be able to construct the whole. To think that only one opinion, one man, one school of thought will construct is the truth, that is idolatry. That's idolatry. Even in Judaism, to think that I have the whole truth and only I am correct is idolatry. It broke into 70 words. In other words, I need your opinion and your opinion and your opinion. Together, we show the word of God. No one man or one school of thought, as great as they ever can be, can possibly capture Hashem's mind and the Torah's mind. Only through the many different people striving to attain God's will can we get to the real picture and the full picture of Torah. So too in rule and government, man attempting to govern in truth, to bring a truthful government, can't do it by himself. You need the contrasting opinions. You need the different opinions to form a just society. You need it. That's why in that sense, democracy is possibly a just rule. It's possibly a just rule. But a dictatorship can never be a just rule unless it has many people around it. A monarchy can be a just rule if he has many people around him helping him think. What happens here, and I'm coming back again just to understand, and this is how I'm offering to understand the Megillah, that this is what Mordechai can't stand. Mordechai is saying, Achashverosh's rule until now was held in check by all the opinions. What's going to happen now, that Haman is the only voice, it will absolutely go into chaos. It's going to have to happen. He didn't think it was going to happen to him necessarily and to his people, but it was clear to him that the next move is going to be imbalanced. And imbalance leads to cruelty. And that means you won't see this person, you won't see this person, you won't understand this, and you will definitely rule unwisely. There's no question about that. Having a lot of opinions, you may rule wisely. To have one opinion, you will definitely not rule wisely, and you will cause horrible, horrible, horrible hardships.
Hence a severe punishment for Moshe when he not entering the land. See, he didn't acknowledge God when he hit the rock to get water.
So that what?
Because he's saying essentially that there's nothing above him at that point. At that point, he made the mistake
Of seeing himself as in God's place?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a tough statement about Moshe. It's a hard statement. I never heard. Interesting. He definitely seems to make a mistake, right? It says "Notzi lechem mayim." In one of the Perushim there, the Ramban brings the Rabbeinu Hananel.
Weakness for Moshe. I mean, Moshe was under pressure to give people water, and I think in that moment, along the lines of what you're saying, he forgot that it's from Hashem that you get the water, and he remembered from himself where what he did was to struck a rock and water came, which was why he was punished so severely, but also why it also wasn't the main thing of it was to make God's name sacred. You know, like,
well, he tried to.
He tried to,
but they mixed up who exactly is who's who. Yeah. That definitely comes out in different commentaries, including the Ramban saying that he confused in a different way. But in that sense, does man try to usurp God, take God's place, or is he trying to reflect Hashem's opinion and God? And the reflection of Hashem has to be through the Shivim. That statement that they said God's word split into 70 places. So that means you need 70 opinions in that sense. 70 meaning a lot. It doesn't have to be 70, right? Many, many, many different opinions. That's when Chassidut talks about how every Jew is a letter in the Torah. This is what they're saying. To really grasp the Torah in its fulfillment, in its entirety, to thank you, in fullness in its entirety, every Jew has to have a place, has to have a say, has to be. He in his life itself, he is part of the living Torah that's being taught and being said and being lived out. That's the Chassidut brings it even further down. That's the individual, but in that sense, always the multitude is what makes it. And once you stop hearing people, you're going to go into the realm of theological idolatry. We'll call it that way, or ethical idolatry. Very much so. Let's stop this.
I have another question.
Do you want it on tape or not on